Hello, good afternoon on this Friday. I'd like to actually talk about some of the questions I've been getting lately on using the MarketWatch quote page. So a lot of times investors really talk about looking for how are the trends, price performance, also looking for, let's say, momentum, relative strength, and many other things. This is what I call the trader dashboard. The trader dashboard, what you're going to notice is it actually has information such as week percent, which is really looking for bull flag pulls, looking for price ascension. 1 month, 21 days of trading, which is really looking for, let's say, stocks that show the earliest signs of trend. And then second, what you're going to notice is also year-to-date returns. Now, all of these you can just click on, and they're going to rank them from top to bottom. So notice that. Now, the big thing also to kind of notice is, so again, week percent, looking for bull flag pulls, price ascension. 1 month, think of it as shorter term type of trend, okay? Year-to-date percentage, obviously if it's January 2nd, it's probably not going to be that helpful. But as you get further and further into the year, gets a more of an idea of what's been moving for the year-to-date so far. Now, the IV percent plus technicals, that's really looking at the implied volatility percentage. The color of the boxes there is in representation of whether it actually has bullish or bearish technical analysis using the moving average, the MACD, and stochastics. You can right-click on that column heading and say Edit Formula, and it's going to give you a breakdown of what those color of the boxes are actually showing on that. I'm going to hold off on that, but that's we can see that there. Now, you're going to also see that we have what's called trend, right? Trend is really looking at where the stock is in relationship to the moving averages. The stocks that actually have, let's say, a 3, okay, is showing the stock above both moving averages, the shorter term momentum moving average, but also the trend moving average. Stocks that are actually with number 4 are showing us stocks above both moving averages, but up near resistance. You're going to also notice that the trend is also showing on the the weekly as well. So if you're someone that says, James, I like to look at the intermediate charts and longer term, that trend weekly is right there. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, where would I actually go to get this? Well, I'll show that in just a moment. And let me just bring something up, if you don't mind. Let me actually slide this over so you can see this. So this is my X page. And what you're now going to notice is if you scroll down to the very top, so my handle is @JamesBoydCS. And if you actually go to the very top, any of the scripts that I'm talking about are going to be right at what we call the pinned tweet. So you're going to see that any of these like week percent, and then in blue, that is the script code. So you can pull those off and put those on your platform. That's where you can find those. Now also, if you said, hey James, I was looking for some stocks that really have relative strength, RS for relative strength. Well, if we're talking for relative strength, we know that it's based upon the duration of time that you give it. If you said, I'm really looking for some stocks, and again, you can rank these, I'm looking for some stocks that are showing some relative strength over the last week or two, relative to the S&P 500, which, by the way, that is customizable to your liking. What are you benching it against? So what you're now going to see is if we were looking at stocks in the Dow Jones that were showing relative strength in the last 5 days, 5 trading days or 1 week, 10 days or 2 weeks of trading, well, it's going to be Cisco, okay? Second one is going to be Nike. Third one is actually going to be NVIDIA. Matter of fact, it's actually been stronger compared to the S&P 500 over the last not only 5, but 10, but also 21, which is 1 month of trading. The one also that's been quite strong across multiple different time periods is Apple, okay? Now, by the way, if you said, well, what do the numbers in the boxes represent? Again, how do you find that out? Right-click on it, Edit Formula, and if you click on that, it's going to give you a quick readout of what do the numbers in the boxes mean, and we can see that right there, okay? So again, right-click on the column heading, okay, Edit Formula, and it gives a readout. So, but probably the strongest we would actually see based on relative strength compared to the S&P 500 is Apple. Now, we can also see which ones are giving bounces. Rank again, same thing. Click on it. Shows us which ones are showing bullish potential bounces. We're also noticing if we're seeing any stocks that are hitting a shorter term high, which we do not have, or intermediate high on this Friday afternoon. Now, the other thing is if we said to ourselves, well, what does a bullish investor look for? Well, number one, they're looking for a trend. We already talked about that. We would be looking at that, number one, week, 1 month percent, or we could actually look at, give me a type of trend, okay? Give me some stocks that are above both moving averages. So we could look at the 1 month or the trend. Now, to back that up, we could also say which ones are actually showing where they're above the both moving averages on a weekly time frame. Those are 3 scripts that could help us actually see which ones are showing trend to itself. If you said, yeah, but I was kind of thinking about something that's actually stronger to a benchmark like the S&P 500, that's where we get into the relative strength. Now, if you said, okay, I got the trend now to itself, or the trend relative to relative strength, I now want to kind of see what we call bounces, breakouts, moving average crossovers, price patterns, etc. Well, if we talked about, let's say, breakouts itself, we would actually use these 3 columns: 20-day high, DH, 55-day high, or breakout. The only one that's really showing a continuation of that is going to be yours truly, Apple, in this example. So these 3 columns, if you said, I like breakouts, well, there they are right there, okay? If you said, I really like moving average crossovers, well, the column MAX for moving average crossover right there, this is going to show the timing, the color of the moving averages, green or red, but it's also going to show the duration of time in which the moving average has been that color. That's what the number in the box is. And if you actually said, James, I actually like to see bounce setups, right there. If you actually said, I like bull flag price patterns, there you go right there. So we've talked about trend. We've talked about, let's say, the trend to itself, trend relative strength in terms of looking at that trend relative to the S&P 500. We've talked about, let's say, looking for breakouts. We talked about, for example, looking for, let's say, moving average crossovers using moving averages, bounces, and also flags. So the reason why we call this the trader dashboard is usually with anything you're probably looking for, it's all in one view. Now, the scripts are really a scan, okay? And it's scanning it all throughout the day. So some people run a scan at that point of the day. This is constantly updating a scan, think script, throughout the day. Now, remember, scripts are not guaranteed for accuracy or timing, but it's a way to see, again, trader dashboard, what is going on right now. And it takes a lot of these things we learn in technical analysis and actually just puts it on one view. We could pull up a list of typically 50 stocks or less and see that. It doesn't have to be a public list. It could be a personal list as well. All right. Now, if you actually said, James, I kind of really be interested in learning more about this, make sure you actually go to YouTube, go to Trader Talk Schwab Coaching Webcast, subscribe for free. Also, don't forget that if you went right to my X page, you can see all those scripts that we actually posted right at the very top. Wanted to go over this today because there was a number of questions throughout the week on this very topic. Hopefully this was helpful. Have a great Friday, and I'll see you back on Monday.